Since the year 2002, the Metropolitan Planning Council has used our annual luncheon as a forum for Illinois' gubernatorial candidates during these election years. Our purpose is direct: to learn the details about the candidates' plans and priorities on issues that are very significant to Metropolitan Chicago's future, some of which receive media attention, and of course, some of which do not. We know many of you in the audience today share our concern for these very issues, and you're more than a little curious, as am I, to find out what the candidates will say. As a reminder, today is a forum, not a debate. Each of the candidates will speak separately and address 5 questions that were carefully crafted by MPC's advisors and submitted to the campaigns in advance, and you've got those in your program. By mutual agreement, first up is Mr. Bruce Rauner, and then after lunch, Governor Pat Quinn. Craig Dellimore, political editor of WBBM News Radio 780, will serve as today's moderator. Most of you will probably be familiar with Craig's voice, which is fabulous, and his astute political coverage, which is even more fabulous. He has been with WBBM for more than 30 years, and he's been its political editor since 2001. I know we're in good hands with Craig. His expert listening and reporting skills will ensure that we do indeed get answers to the biggest issues facing our region and state. Please join me in welcoming Craig Dellimore, our moderator.
Thank you very much, Mary Sue. She has been one of the, and MPC have been really a great resource for reporters as well as a resource for this metropolitan area. It is a pleasure to be serving as moderator here. I actually did this once before, showing that the MPC is not infallible. They somehow invited me back, but that was in 2006 with Judy Bartopinka and then Governor Rod Blagojevich. And those of you who were here for that remember how much fun that was. So I think we're going to have fun today too. But let me set the stage for how we're doing this with, as Mary Sue said, some input from top business, government, and community leaders. MPC drafted the questions that I will pose today to the candidates. I may have had a little hand in tweaking them a bit, but really the real work, the heavy lifting was done by a really astute panel. The questions are available in your programs, and as I ask each question, you will also see the questions and the context-setting infographic on the screens. So the candidates and their campaign staffs received these questions in advance. They each took advantage of the MPC's offer of an opportunity to sit down with them for a briefing. So since they had time to prepare their remarks, I'm expecting that they are going to provide thorough, sharp, and clear answers and help make sure that we stay on time and on track. 5 questions. We have about 25 minutes, and we're all going to know how much time we have. So the question is, what do they need me for? And the answer is, not much. However, should the candidates avoid answering any part of the question, well, then I am empowered to step in and kind of nudge them back towards something closer to what an answer is. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, it's unthinkable that they would do that. And also to try to keep us on time. One of the few things that the campaigns absolutely agreed on was who goes first and who goes second. That wasn't even a discussion. They each got what they wanted on this, so there was no flip of the coin or anything like that. So Bruce Rauner chose the first slot before lunch, and Governor Quinn the second. Now, I'm going to save you the agony of hearing me read Bruce Rauner's bio. It's in your program, so you don't need that. So I have to have something to say about him. So we decided we should try and find out some fun fact, some little thing that you might not know about the candidates that we can just throw out there. And actually, we can't say that the Rauner campaign was media shy this time. They actually came through. We now know Bruce Rauner's guilty pleasure. He likes eating pie for breakfast. And that can be rhubarb. I think there are a couple of other pies that he likes. But so while you guys are having lunch, we know he probably had dessert already today. Anyway, without further ado, let's get to the main event, our questions. Thank you. You're in the far chair. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm assuming that you can see all of us and you can see the screen, so we're going to get going. So our first question, and I'll set it up a little bit. Illinois is facing a $2 billion gap in fiscal year 2015, due in part to declining revenues as the temporary state income tax increases phase out. The state's deficit stands at $5 billion with its $100 billion pension debt, the worst in the nation, looming large. So here's the first question. What are your specific ideas for new revenues, as well as cuts in spending, to address both the budget gap and the deficit?
Okay, well, Craig, first of all, thank you. Appreciate it very much. Mary Sue, thank you for your leadership. Lester, thank you for your leadership. Congratulations, Jim Farrell. And Monsignor, I don't know if you're still here, but you know what, I apologize for the ads. You know what, and I'll apologize to everybody in this room. You're going to see my face on television more in the next 2 months than you ever wanted to see it. And as my wife likes to say, I've got a great voice for radio, but I have a face for radio too. So it's going to be a little bit painful for you guys. This topic, the first question, is probably the most important one we could discuss at any point for our history of Illinois. We are in crisis. We are in meltdown mode, and our entire future is fundamentally at risk. And what we can't do is simply take the easy way out and raise more taxes. We cannot just simply raise taxes, which is the current effort going on in Springfield. That's not the solution. We can't tax our way out of our problems. They are too large, and the tax burden would only make the problems worse in the long run. The critical answer to our challenges is to become a growth state, to grow our way out of our challenges. That is the ultimate solution to every one of our problems. Today in Illinois alone, this year alone, we've lost over 4,200 jobs lost net in Illinois, this year alone. We are the bottom of the barrel of the states for economic growth, and we have to change that in order to fix our many challenges that face us today. How do we do that? First of all, it's regulatory reform, reducing the regulatory burden on businesses, workers' comp, tort, red tape, regulations and restrictions, so we're more pro-business, pro-growth, number one. Number two, we've got to overhaul our entire tax code. We've got to look at the entire tax code, not just income taxes. We need to look at our sales tax, our real estate taxes, every tax that we've got, and compare ourselves to the well-run states around America. What do the good growth states do, the prosperous states do? What do they tax? How much do they tax it? How can we be competitive in Illinois? That's the critical challenge. Today, Illinois is not competitive, and we can't grow our way out of our problems unless we are competitive. So we're recommending an overhaul of the tax code, a reduction in the income tax. The growth states don't have high income taxes. They have a modernized tax code with a broad base, low rates. We've got to get a handle on our property taxes. They're already the second highest in America. We moved from number 7 to number 2 in America on real estate taxes. We've got to put a cap on those and stop relying on property taxes so heavily. Number 3, we've got to modernize our sales tax in Illinois. We are one of the few states we only tax products with our sales tax in Illinois. That's very rare. We've got to modernize our tax code. We used to be a heavily product-driven, manufacturing-driven economy. Today, we're much more of a service economy. We don't tax services. We've got to look creatively at which services, especially business services, we can and should tax with a sales tax. It's painful. I hate to put new taxes in place, but this is an important pro-growth pro-investment policy. We shouldn't tax investment and income. We should tax consumption. That's the pro-growth approach to it, and we need to overhaul our tax code. Then within that, we need to close the corporate loopholes. We've got special deals throughout our corporate tax code for certain corporations. We've got loopholes. We've got corporate welfare. Heavily politically connected corporations get special deals, while your typical corporation does not. We've got to change that. We should have a level playing field with a pro-growth tax policy. Then again, we've got to look at our spending. Our spending in Illinois is broken. Our pensions are unaffordable. I'm deeply concerned that the changes to the pensions that were made last November will be found unconstitutional. We won't know for a while until our Supreme Court opines, but changing the deal for a retiree after they've already retired, I think that's going to be pretty clearly found to be unconstitutional. We'll find out. What I believe, our team believes very strongly, is that what is constitutional and fair and more affordable in the long run is to create a second pension plan for future work, not changing any historical arrangement, not changing any historical deal, but for future work, create a second pension plan that's more of a defined contribution style plan, more of a 401k style plan. Doesn't save a tremendous amount of money in the short run, saves a lot of money in the long run. And is more what the voters have in their lives. It's much more reasonable, more livable for the taxpayers of our state. We also need to look at Medicaid in Illinois. I believe in a strong social services safety net, but Medicaid in Illinois is very poorly run. The private investigation to look at enrollment problems in the state was finding that up to 40% of the enrollees were not entitled to get the benefits that they were receiving. And we've got to look at eligibility and how we're running our Medicaid program, compare ourselves to the well-run states. I think there's a lot of savings there. We deserve, our low-income families deserve support for their health care, but it's not fair to our taxpayers or our families who are deserving if folks who are not deserving are in it, or if folks who are not entitled are part of the program. It should be done efficiently and effectively and transparently. And then finally, I'd say that we've got to end the waste in our bureaucracy. We have rampant patronage, cronyism, and corruption. It has not really fundamentally changed for years. Our current administration is under federal investigation for corruption. There's a massive tax on the economy of Illinois to have patronage, cronyism, and corruption. It's an expensive thing. We've got to get it out. We've got to end it. And my goal is to bring in people with deep expertise who truly know how to run a state government. I want to put together the most talented team that's ever turned around a state government, rip out the cronyism and corruption at its very core, and bring experts from around Illinois into the government to turn it around. Even our current administration's own advisory board said that there's $500 million a year in wasted procurement spending inside central management services, our government's bureaucracy that runs the government operations. And from everything we can tell in our homework, that number's low. There's significant more money to be saved there. And that's just one instance of the excessive spending and wasted taxpayer money that we could bring back into restoring our balanced budget. We have had a structural deficit in Illinois for years and years. It's not sustainable. We've got to bring our structural integrity into balance. It's going to be tough. We're not going to get it done in a year. We need to transform this over a couple-year period. It's going to take difficult decisions. It's going to be painful, but we've got to do it. And we've got to focus on the long term. If we get caught up too much in what's our budget next year, how are we going to balance it, that's an important issue, but what matters is that we make the tough decisions for structural reform for the long term so we can grow our way out of our problems. That will be our focus.
And just to clarify, you want to gradually back off the income tax?
I do. What we're recommending is that we gradually step down our income tax increase that was put in 2010. Go back to where it was in 2010.
Okay, on to our next question. Funding from the Illinois fuel tax, which has not been increased since 1990, will fall by more than 36% through 2040, even as federal funding for transportation infrastructure continues to decline. To keep Metropolitan Chicago's roads and transit in a state of good repair and accomplish the enhancements identified in our region's plan, which is called Go to 2040, the shortfall totals $43.5 billion. So, Mr. Rauner, do you support raising Illinois' gas tax? If not, what new revenues do you propose to dedicate to transportation infrastructure, if any?
Okay. Infrastructure is a critical element of our growth plan. We have got to grow our way out of our challenges. We can't do that unless we invest in our infrastructure, and we have world-class infrastructure. And that includes everything. That includes roads, bridges, locks, dams, canals, rail, every element of transportation infrastructure. We need to be world-class if we're going to be a growth economy. We've been raiding our road fund for years. We have been diverting money from our infrastructure and putting it to other use for years. We should make sure that infrastructure is fully, properly funded, and it's a core part of our budget every year, not just in certain years, and not only funded through bonded indebtedness. We can and should borrow for major new infrastructure projects that have 30-year plus paybacks. That's appropriate. But we should have an ongoing annual budgeting process that includes investment in infrastructure, making sure that our infrastructure is excellent. I'll make that a top priority as governor, and together with the MPC, we want to find ways to pay for that. I'm not a fan of raising the gas tax. That's a regressive tax. It hurts struggling working families pretty significantly. Also hurts our competitiveness, pushes a lot of trucking firms out, and causes a lot of families to purchase gas if they can cross the borders in our surrounding states. It's not the best way to fund things. What I would recommend we do for incremental money beyond our annual budget and beyond bonding is to come up with creative public-private partnership financing. Other states have done that well, and I believe there's some creative financing options to undertake significant new expansion and upgrades of our infrastructure where we can tap capital from the private sector in a partnership creatively. There's clear opportunity there to finance many of our projects.
And to get more bang for the buck, do you support using performance measures to select the Illinois transportation investments, like prioritizing new road and transit projects according to how they have access to jobs and the like?
Yes, I emphatically, strongly support performance evaluation when we're making these decisions. Absolutely. I'd love to work very closely with the MPC to come up with ways to best do that. I think you guys have spent some time focused on that. Critical that we look at a cost-benefit analysis both in our spending and also in our regulations. Frankly, we have regulations here in Illinois that are put in place for a variety of reasons that often have a very negative impact on our economy and our economic growth, and only marginal incremental benefit to families or to our economy. And we've got to have a more rigorous process of cost-benefit analysis in what we do, and a real performance analysis in our spending. Critical, given the challenges we've got on short resources.
Thank you. Now, next question. Due to more frequent and intense storms, urban areas across the region are more prone than ever to costly flooding. Many of the region's aging pipes, pumps, and sewers are near or past their useful life. So what can the state do to more efficiently direct dedicated and new revenues to repair and replace traditional water infrastructure like pipes, pumps, and sewers, and to reward communities that invest in green infrastructure, such as green roofs and bioswales?
Yep.
You'll have to Google that too.
Bioswale, I've never looked that one up. Here's our challenge. I was born and raised in Chicago. I lived around here my whole life. I love it here. The challenge we've got is Chicago was basically built on a swamp. And we have an ongoing challenge with water and water management issues, especially in heavy rains. Big problem. And there's no easy solution. I'm very much looking forward to having our administration work closely with the MPC to come up with creative solutions on how we fund infrastructure for water management and water control. I don't have all the solutions on it. It's a huge problem, critical. Many communities are suffering from flooding repeatedly, regularly, and it's damaging the quality of life, and it's very expensive. And there's a lot of solutions that I am aware of. We should take better advantage of the federal money that's available to manage water and water problems and flooding. There's significant federal money available, and we have not taken full advantage and creative advantage of it. I'd like to work with the MPC to do that. I also would like to find the most talented people in Illinois through the MPC who really have expertise in water management issues and make them part of our administration to take on these challenges. And work very closely with local governments, both municipalities and counties, to come up with solutions on planning, zoning, and investment in new pipe water drainage systems. And I am supportive. I don't like complex tax structures in general, but I do believe we should put in place tax incentives for renewable and bio, as you say, bioswales, green roofs, programs that have an economic benefit to the community. We can have some tax incentives to help promote those and expand their use.
Okay. Thank you for that. And next question. The state's local government consolidation task force recently released an assessment of the myriad challenges associated with having 7,000 plus units of local government throughout Illinois, including that in the enabling statutes for many of those entities. There is no established process for dissolving them. Services that smaller single-purpose governments provide are often inefficient or of substandard quality. However, the task force also determined that elimination or consolidation of those units may not result in savings to taxpayers, and that cooperation or collaboration can be more impactful in terms of savings. So the question is, what's your plan to improve the efficiency and quality of local government service delivery, and to get the right amount of local governments in Illinois?
This is a critical challenge. And let me explain. I've been focused on this from day one. This is one of the biggest challenges we've got to take on. We have 7,000 units of government. Actually, I think it's more than that, but that's the official reported number. We have 2,000 more than the number 2 state, and we have roughly double the average state, I believe. Now, consolidating those can result in significant savings in some cases, in other cases not. We've got to look and review this intensively in detail. What I've recommended right from the start of this campaign is forming a task force on this issue, and I would love the MPC to be a fundamental part of this. But I'd like to form a task force between the governor's office, a group of the most creative mayors around the state of Illinois, county chairmen from around the state of Illinois, and school superintendents from around the state of Illinois, with the fundamental goal of rationalizing the structure of the layers of government that we have in our state. It is out of control. We have districts and boards and organizations up and down their state. Many of them have pensions. Many of them have taxing authority. Many of them have high salaries. And unfortunately, many of them have patronage, corruption, cronyism, just as we do up at the state level. And we've got to rationalize this. We have a huge number of unfunded mandates, and we have regulations and policies put in place at one layer of government or one level of government that dramatically impact the spending at other levels of government. And unfortunately, if the state goes one way, the mayors go another, the counties go another, and the districts go another way, and we're uncoordinated, we end up in the mess we have today with big spending, inefficiency, overlap, and waste, and also decisions made in one place forcing up more spending at another place. And rather than the politicians going like this, I think, we should all get in a room and go like this and hold each other accountable to get real dramatic reform. I don't think it's going to take long. I think less than a year. I think maybe 6 months of intensive focus on this issue. We can make recommendations on a dramatic overhaul. Together, I've already met with many of the mayors around the state and many county chairmen, and boy, are they all in to this idea. And they've already given us a tremendous number. I just raise the issue and immediately get a flood of 10, 20 ideas that are very significant on savings opportunity if the state and the city or the state and the county would cooperate together to drive productivity and drive efficiency. So we're going to make this a critical priority. This can help transform our cost of government and encourage economic growth on a pretty massive scale fairly quickly.
Thank you very much. And we saved housing for last, but a very important issue as income inequality gaps widen. Illinois and the metropolitan Chicago area are grappling with delivering on a high quality of life for all residents. Illinois leads the nation in foreclosure filings, though. Blight and disinvestment plagues many communities. Meanwhile, other communities have rebounded economically and are experiencing job growth, rising home values, and new construction starts. So, in light of the declining state and federal resources for housing, Mr. Rauner, social services and community development also on the way down, how do you allocate these dollars to ensure affordable housing investment in both profitable markets and those that are distressed?
Well, it's a great question. Tough topic. Again, I look forward to working very closely with the MPC and other leading organizations around the state. We have great expertise in Illinois around the housing challenges, and I want to tap that in our administration, bring in experts, and form partnerships with both nonprofit agencies as well as businesses to come up with housing solutions. It's a critical challenge in so many communities. This gets back, though, to our fundamental priorities. We have got to become a growth state with a booming economy, creating jobs in every community, in every neighborhood. Fundamentally top priority. We can't fix any other problem unless we do that. We also need to invest in our education system in every community. We've cut $500 million in education funding in recent years. Many of our school districts are struggling. We need world-class education in every district, in every community. Critically important. That, in turn, can help drive home values and construction opportunities in many neighborhoods. Now, I'm a believer in planning. MPC is the masters of that. I believe we can do a better job of planning our low-income housing or affordable housing efforts more closely with our transportation infrastructure and emphasize mixed-use housing and mixed-use developments and affordable housing with greater access to public transportation. I think we can do a much better job of emphasizing development on those corridors and with those opportunities so our families can get access to the jobs that are available in Illinois. It's a critical, we've got to make that connection for families that are of lower income and are struggling to advance. They need access to the jobs. We need that access to the public transit systems, and I'll emphasize that in our planning and come up with incentives to help drive that. I look forward to working with MPC to come up with policies to help do that. I also believe we can come up with tax incentives, tax abatement opportunities or rebates in our real estate taxes for developments that commit to put a certain amount of affordable housing into their overall development plan. So we can drive and push affordable housing into some more typical housing or mixed up upper income, middle income housing opportunities so we can get more diversity in many of our neighborhoods and communities. We can use tax incentives to get that done. I've seen it done in other states. And this comes back to what I fundamentally believe. You know what? We don't have to try to reinvent the wheel. We have so many challenges in Illinois. What we've got to do is look creatively, study what other states, other communities are doing to tackle their problems, steal the best ideas, and hopefully make them better by adapting them to what would work in our neighborhoods here in Illinois. Many communities are taking on these challenges. Some have come some creative solutions. We're collecting those now. I look forward to working with MPC to study what's going on around the country, get the best ideas, and bring them here.
Just one follow-up. You mentioned increasing funding for education. Where will the money come from that? If not revenue, where's the money going to come?
Well, education, in my view, is the most important thing we do collectively as a community. My wife and I have dedicated much of our lives to education. When you look at the challenges we face as a state, as a city, as a nation, whether it's unemployment, whether it's low wages, whether it's crime, whether it's lack of income growth, whether it's competitiveness, you look at whatever challenge that you'd like. Education may not be the sole answer to the challenge, but education is a major core building block of the solution. And unfortunately, in too many communities in Illinois, we have inadequate schools. And my wife and I have spent much of our own personal financial resources investing in donating to schools, teacher development, teacher training, voucher programs, scholarships for low-income kids, merit pay for great teachers and great principals. We've worked very closely with the mayors of Chicago to help try to improve. Chicago Public Schools has been working hard on that, along with Lester Crown and Jim and others for many, many years. Education is the most important thing we do. There is no reason that we've had to cut $500 million in education funding in recent years, other than we just decided education wasn't a priority. Education, we're a wealthy state. We are a wealthy state. We're frittering our wealth away by not being a growth state and pushing our business owners out and our successful job creators out of our state with our bad economic policies. If we grow, we can have the money for education. And I would put education at the top priority. It would be sacrosanct. The cuts can come in other places. Education is not where things should be cut. But we invest in education, make it a true priority, and we bring also vocational training and job training back into our public high schools. We used to do that well in Illinois. We've taken it out of our public high schools, and as a result, we have one of the highest unemployment rates in the United States, but we have thousands of jobs unfilled around Illinois because our young people aren't trained for the jobs that are available. We've got to change that. That's a failure of leadership, and we'll change that.
So the money comes from just the growth, not any dedicated or new revenue?
Don't fall for this line that the politicians will give you about dedicated revenue streams. Doesn't happen. Money's fungible. Every time politicians want to raise taxes, they say it's for the schools. It doesn't go to the schools. And when we put the lottery in place, that was supposed to fund education. Didn't fund education. Money gets funded, and the road fund was supposed to be dedicated for the road fund. Didn't go to the road fund. I think the politicians can end run these dedicated fund ideas. General revenue should support our schools, and that should be held as a top priority.
Mr. Rauner, thank you very much. And for those of you keeping score at home, we are under our time. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.